Aloha! Welcome to Meditation Monday, a wellness broadcast series brought to you by California Women's Music, an event-centric nonprofit dedicated to advancing women in music, business, education, and the fine arts. I'm your host, local singer-songwriter Kate Ramsey, and lead member of the band Rose Hayes. In this unique series, we will bring to you creative and intuitive meditation practices in which you can join along in, relax, and heal. We have various segments lined up with special guests, so stay tuned and let's vibe.
Hi, I'm Ruben Gonzales. I'm a musician in the Bay Area and guitar player for Rose Hayes. I've been playing guitar for about 20 years, but I also play bass, do sound mixing, live sound mastering, and session work whenever I can. I'd like to thank Kate Ramsey and California Women's Music for having me on today. I think this is a great project and I'm happy to be on. So for today, it's going to be a little bit different. I don't really have too much of a yoga or meditation routine. Instead, when I want to calm myself or center myself, I like to create things or build things, be it building a parts guitar or repairing amps or pedals, or in this case, baking. So today, I'm going to show you how to make some blondies. This is a recipe that I've kind of amalgamated from other places online, and I'm going to be doing a couple more modifications to it today. So please join me as we experiment and see how it comes out. Thank you. Hello, and welcome to my sort of improvised kitchen thing here, just outside of my actual kitchen. As you can see, I'm already slightly covered in flour, and you know, as any good kitchen process goes, you will be too. It's all part of the fun. So the first step I like to take when I'm working on any recipe is to write down all of my ingredients and the preparation methods and all that, and leave yourself enough space for notes. Leaving yourself enough space for notes allows you to make modifications, and if it's good, remember what you've done. If it's not, avoid it in the future, which is always a good thing. So first, I like to start with my dry ingredients, and those are as follows. 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of brown sugar. This case is dark brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, some chips of some sort. In this case, I've got peanut butter chips, and I've got about 1 cup of these. Most likely won't use all of these. I like to sort of judge by how much volume is in my mixture. Usually I end up with about 2/3 of a cup, and usually I'll do like half of a cup of peanut butter chips and another 1/4 cup of chocolate chips, and that gives me a nice, well, you know, chocolate and peanut butter. And now the fun part, the wet ingredients. So those are 2 eggs in this non-transparent container, 1 stick of butter softened. In this case, I'm using unsalted butter, but again, I've used both, and they're both pretty good. Usually if you're using salted butter, I like to maybe take it down to half of a teaspoon of salt, just to kind of keep things a little bit balanced. But depending on what kind of chips or flavor you're putting in your blondies, I like a little bit of saltiness, so judge accordingly. 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And the final, possibly most important ingredient, which I have never actually tried before, 1/2 cup of rum chata. So if you've never had this, it basically tastes like a liquid churro, which is fantastic for baking. Putting rum in baked goods is always a good time. It just adds a little bit of depth to it, and the little bit of cinnamon flavor, cinnamon kind of cinnamon nutmeggy, I think, flavor. It just makes it all that much better. General order of operations for baking or really cooking anything of any kind is that you want to keep your dry and wet ingredients separate until like the absolute last minute. It's just kind of a good practice to follow in case anything goes awry. Once you add liquid to your flour, for example, you pretty much pass the point of no return. If you've bungled a measurement or something, you kind of can't really do much. The one exception with blondies is that I like to start with my butter and my sugar. Something about the molassesy quality of the brown sugar just kind of, it gets everything started in a way that gives you the right texture. So, add your sugar. In this case, in the spirit of improvisation, since we're adding the rum, which is fairly sweet, I'm going to hold roughly 1/8 of a cup of the brown sugar. So that'll leave us with roughly 7/8 of a cup of brown sugar in our mixture. Again, soften your butter. It's a good time. So for mixing this first step, I like to start on low. Just kind of keep an eye on things, make sure, brown sugar and butter, probably not going to explode, but you never know. Once this looks like it's reasonably incorporated, take your unreasonably large spoon and just give everything a good scrape down. You don't necessarily need to be that thorough for this part, because everything's going to get mixed even further once you start adding more ingredients, but you just want to avoid anything getting too caked on when you can. So now on to our next wet ingredients. So now we're going to add our eggs. Some recipes call for these to be whisked or beaten. I usually don't. And your vanilla. Again, because of the rum, I'm going to hold a little bit of this back. And again, mix on low. This one should go pretty quick. You're not adding that many liquids, and you don't want to overbeat your eggs. You don't end up scrambling them, which is... Next is the rum. At this point, I think things are going to get pretty liquidy, but next is the rum. Now, once that looks like it's reasonably mixed, doesn't need to be completely mixed, but again, you want everything to be mostly incorporated. It's time to move on to the dry ingredients, and we're going to start with our flour. This is the part where you're probably going to coat your entire kitchen in white, but it's all part of the fun. You'll deal with it later. Again, mix on low. Now while this is mixing, I like to add my final two dry ingredients, which is the salt and the baking powder. Pretty quickly, this is going to start to turn into something that resembles actual dough, and it'll be very exciting. Again, once it's mostly incorporated, you want to open it up, take your unreasonable spoon, and just kind of scrape everything down. Just to make sure you don't have any wayward clumps of brown sugar, although those can be good. Gives you sort of a crumbly, crispy thing. But you just want to avoid any unknowns, especially with baking. This is the point where another more reasonably sized spoon comes in handy, because it's going to get pretty gummy. I'll let this go for another little less than a minute. And now is the point where you have to make your decision about your chips. This looks like it's a relatively thin dough because of the rum. So I'm going to go ahead and add maybe about 2/3 of a cup of these chips. I'm going to do this with my handy food scale. If you're doing this by weight, that would be about 6 ounces. In my case, roughly 6.5 ounces, because that's what I'm doing. So when I'm adding these to my mixture, I like to run my mixer on low and just kind of slowly add these in. Otherwise, the extra mass just kind of, things start to get pushed around more than they get mixed, and it's just a little bit of a process. This just makes everything run a little smoother. This is a good point to decide whether you want to add anything else. Usually I add chocolate chips. I think what I'm actually going to do is go ahead and pour my mixture and then sprinkle my chocolate chips on top. Give it a nice little crust of chocolatey goodness. So, now the fun part. So the next step is to get a baking pan. In this case, I'm using a 9x13 pan. And what you want to do is take some of your leftover softened butter and just kind of grease the pan. You can use any kind of, you can use cooking spray or even a parchment paper to do this step, but you don't want to skip it. Otherwise, you're going to have a real hard time getting your blondies out of there. You might anyway. If you're like me, you probably won't grease it enough. It's my curse. And you want to be generous with this. You're doing this to avoid your blondies sticking to the pan. And let me tell you, if they stick, it's going to be a real nightmare getting them off. You may as well just eat them out of the pan at that point. They're going to be pretty gnarly. So be generous. Don't be afraid of the grease. Now that your pan's all greased up, it's time to pour. If you're using a standing mixer, you want to make sure you unplug it before you do any of this, because the last thing you need is to have to tell people you lost a finger in a very unfortunate blondie making accident. It's just not a good story. Or is it? It's not. So, take your big, unnecessarily large, and probably at this point kind of messy spoon. Just kind of scoop everything out. Don't worry about getting it nice and flat just yet. That'll come later. Just get everything out of the bowl and into your pan. So now I just like to smooth everything out. Get it. Make sure you get it to. Make sure you spread it out to all the corners of the pan. Don't worry too much about making it pretty. It's all going to sort of settle once you stick it in the oven. Surprise! Different angle. So you want to set your oven to about 350 degrees. Let that preheat. So once you get everything in your pan, sprinkle a little bit of the chocolate chips on there. My camera died, but you can pretty much get that part. You just sprinkle chocolate chips on there. It's not really any method to it. But so you want to put this on your center rack. Your cook time is probably going to depend on the density of your batter. It's not really any way to measure that. So usually what I do, it usually cooks somewhere between 15 and 35 minutes. So just start with 15 and check it every 5 minutes after that, and you'll be good to go. So once your blondies are a little bit brown around the edges, they should be pretty good. There's a toothpick test that I've never been good at for whatever reason. You stick a toothpick in, and if it comes out with dough on it, it's not done yet. But every time I do it, it just comes out with dough. So I don't know. But give it a good eye, and once it's brown around the edges, they should be good to go. Take them out, leave them, let them sit for about 20 minutes, and they'll be good to go. So while those are cooling, I'm going to get set up and play some music. So enjoy. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for joining us today for Meditation Monday. Again, I'm your host, Kate Ramsey, aka Rose Hayes. We will have a new series every Monday at 6 p.m. with more guests and even more creative meditation practices for you to learn how to heal and relax. California Women's Music is an event-centric nonprofit dedicated to advancing women in music, business, education, and the fine arts. Please consider making a donation to our Wellness and Enrichment Fund on our website at cwmnp.com/community-funds. And if you're looking for other ways to support wellness and enrichment expenses, such as classes, lessons, and therapy sessions, to name a few, please also visit our website at cwmnp.com/get-support. Meditation Monday gives us all a chance to learn various types of meditation practices, listen to all kinds of music styles, and be entertained by dancers, storytellers, and poets, and more, while going deeper into ourselves with yoga, stretching, and breathwork. We invite you to become a wellness leader and guest on the show if you feel called to it. Please share your ideas with us via our Facebook page or, again, our website. So thanks again for tuning in. See you next week. Aloha.